sure you've all heard someone say, eat your food, there's starving kids in Africa, or something similar. And while that may be true in some parts, a more realistic thing to say might be, eat your food, there's starving kids in your class. Food insecurity, as defined by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, is, quote, a household-level economic and social condition of limited access to food, end quote. Although the U.S. is one of the top 15 richest countries per capita, 43% of the nation's children live in households where their basic needs are not met. According to the Southern Economic Journal, quote, in 2013, 14% of adults and 21.4% of children lived in food insecure households, end quote. Because of this, many students depend on the meals that their schools provide in order to get the proper nutrition. My family was eligible for free and reduced lunch during my grade school time, so I know how it feels to get the side eye from your peers because my single mother wasn't as wealthy as them. I feared being judged early in high school, so I chose to eat the snacks I would bring from home instead of getting lunch at school. This experience and memory, which I'm sure some of you have experienced too, made me interested in this topic so that no kid ever has to feel the way that we did. The United States should expand the national school lunch policy to all grade schools in America to make sure that all food insecure children are fed. I know what you're thinking. Who's going to pay for this, and wouldn't it cost the schools more money? Actually, schools who participate in the NSLP receive support from the states through matching funds, which are required in order to receive federal reimbursements. In addition to cash reimbursements, schools also receive USDA foods, which frees up the money that would have previously been spent on food, allowing them to use that elsewhere. USDA foods are purchased from U.S. farmers who produce a surplus of products, and schools who participate in the NSLP are eligible to receive 32 cents per lunch served with USDA food. So let us start with where the policy originated. The National School Lunch Act, signed by President Truman in 1946, sought to promote the health and well-being of the children in America and promote the domestic consumption of agricultural products. This policy has since been modified from addressing undernutrition to overnutrition or obesity. One modification that has been made was the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act implemented in 2010. This act required the USDA to follow the nutrition standards and dietary patterns of the dietary guidelines for Americans. Schools must now use food-based meal plans instead of nutrition-based, meaning that they must contain one fruit, a vegetable, a grain, a meat or meat alternative, and milk. Another modification made in 1975 called Offer versus Serve allows students to decline some of the meal components and to reduce food waste and allow students to choose what they want to eat. Students must pick at least 3 of the 5 components to qualify for a reimbursable meal. So now we know a little bit about the policy, let's talk about who it affects and why we should expand it. Food insecurity can cause lots of problems for developing children, both mentally and physically. Children who are made hangry or irritable by hunger interfere with their peer studies as well as their own. According to Free for All Fixing School in America, a book published by Berkeley, quote, hungry children do less well on tests of mental ability and school performance and are more likely to fail, be held back, and drop out, end quote. Children from food insecure families are also more likely to miss school, be suspended, and repeat a grade. And in their adult years, they're more likely to face limited employability, less workforce productivity, poor judgment, and poor work ethic. It can also affect children's self-esteem. Students who may be eligible for free lunch may choose not to eat it because of the stigma around it and being quote-unquote poor. Some schools have policies that seem to be designed to create a stigma. For example, some districts gave students with unpaid balances an alternative lunch, which consists of a piece of cheese, 2 slices of bread, and a carton of milk. It also comes in a paper bag instead of a tray, making the food insecure kids much easier to distinguish. Another example is, in Alabama, a 3rd grader who couldn't pay his lunch bill was given a stamp that said, "I need money." This kind of mockery and judgment has a negative effect on children, but if we were to make lunch free for all students, then it would be much harder to distinguish who was food insecure and who wasn't, getting rid of that class divide between students in the lunchroom. Not only can it mentally affect children, but also physically. When faced with insufficient nutrients, the body limits its energy usage and directs it to the most important parts of the body. The first priority is to keep the organs functioning. After that is the regulation of height and weight, and finally, depending on the available energy, is the child's social interactions such as conversation or play. Hungry children do not have the dietary fuel to engage meaningfully with others. So not only does providing free meals to students improve their individual lives, but it also improves the school through an increase in test scores, decrease in absences, and decrease in misbehavior. According to a study done by Auburn University, quote, in the United States, 28% of children under the age of 17 report having been physically assaulted at some point in their lives by a non-sibling peer, end quote. Not all of the assault is on school property or even related to school, but there is a link between hunger and misbehavior. The study found that after the NSLP had been implemented in schools, there was a 0.13 fewer reported cases of misbehavior per 100 students. There was also a noticeable increase in math test scores, reading test scores in schools that offered free lunch, because now students have the dietary fuel to comprehend what they're being taught and engage with the learning material. Food is an incentive for some people to go to school because they may not have access to as much or any at home. So, schools who offered free lunch also saw a decrease in the number of student absences. In conclusion, food insecurity is a real problem many families in America face, including your peers, face daily. Although we cannot provide free meals for every family at home, we can provide for our students and developing kids to make sure that they receive the proper amount of nutrition and education. Free lunch for all students would not only positively affect the students mentally and physically, but also positively affect the school's test scores, attendance records, and behavior at no extra cost to the schools. So next time you're complaining about how bland the school food is, consider your peers who can't afford it, and I hope this policy comes to mind as well. Thank you.